Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Kulbhushan Yadav is in Pakistan's custody. Indian Navy commander who was here to sabotage the peace and stability inside Pakistan and in the region. Kulbhushan Yadav is a case study primarily of Indian designs to sabotage, as I said earlier, peace inside the region, inside specifically Pakistan. The way they have been supporting the terrorist organizations like BLA and TTP for that matter inside Pakistan. These terrorist organizations have been targeting innocent Pakistanis. Kulbhushan Yadav is a case. There are other Indian nationals inside Pakistan and there are cases that are being run against them. Some of them were sentenced. Some of them have completed their sentences given by the Pakistani courts. Kulbhushan Yadav is also a case. And India, in a gimmick, in a political gimmick, in a gimmick in the wake of law, is trying to also play around Kulbhushan Yadav's case. Pakistan Foreign Office has rebuffed the statements made by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs around the Kulbhushan Yadav case. But primarily the underlying issue is that India wants to bypass the whole procedure of Kulbhushan Yadav, and also Indian government is looking for an escape from the legal proceedings that would take place against Kulbhushan Yadav. According to ICJ, Pakistan is doing what Pakistan can do and Pakistan must do. We're going to discuss about this, primarily Kulbhushan Yadav and the case against him that is being run inside Pakistan. We are also going to discuss about Pakistan-Bangladesh relations in today's program. Recently, Pakistan's ambassador to Bangladesh met the Prime Minister of Bangladesh and both agreed that the bilateral relations between Pakistan and Bangladesh should strengthen, they should improve, and in the backdrop of this we are going to discuss about the regional politics as well. And now, after so many years, after the issue that we saw back in 1971 of Bangladesh and Pakistan, after that the developments have been there. But this is a major development that the Pakistani ambassador has met the Bangladeshi Prime Minister. We are joined by Air Commodore Basit Raza, a renowned analyst on Pakistan's national security. We are also being joined by Mr. Shaukat Paracha, renowned senior analyst. I welcome you both. Air Commodore Raza, starting with Kulbhushan Yadav's case, first of all. An Indian spy in Pakistan's custody, and now there is whole propaganda by the Ministry of External Affairs India around the lawfare, I would say, around the issue that is being the way Kulbhushan Yadav is tried in Pakistan. How do you see that, this whole situation?
This is nothing but an effort to drag their feet. The Indians are trying to drag their feet so that it casts a negative aspersion on Pakistan that it is not implementing the decisions, the judgment of International Court of Justice. But the facts are to the contrary. If I recap the International Court of Justice, Indian plea was that the Kulbhushan they made three conditions for Pakistan, that Pakistan should give consular access to India. Right. Number two, Pakistan must review the whole trial and conviction of the case. And the third was that the execution of this Kulbhushan Yadav should be suspended. So Pakistan, in fact, has implemented all three. And, to do this, it was actually Pakistan had to issue an ordinance in 2020, which is the International Court of Justice Review Ordinance, and that actually paved the way for the court proceedings, which is now taking place in Islamabad High Court, because otherwise the FGCM trials are final. The convictions are final. But this provision was created to sort of accommodate the judgment of International Court of Justice. Pakistan has twice given access to the Indian High Commissioner to meet Yadav, and now that the case is in Islamabad High Court, a third access has been offered. This was by the Islamabad High Court, and Pakistan has agreed that they can again have an access. Now the problem is what India is doing to stall the proceedings of at India Islamabad High Court, headed by the Chief Justice Mr. Athar Minallah, is that they are not appointing a council. Now, as per the law, and this is the verdict of the International Court of Justice, that the case has to be reviewed as per the Pakistani laws. So, Pakistani laws are very clear that the counsel for the accused has to be from Pakistan. It cannot be from any other country. So, this is what our stance is. And what happened that during the court proceedings, the Attorney General of Pakistan sort of gave a reference to another case. There's another Indian prisoner, Mr. Muhammad Ismail, who has completed his sentence but has not been released. So India has appointed a counsel to contest his case. So the Attorney General of Pakistan highlighted this fact that once they can appoint a counsel for one prisoner, why not for another? So this was actually picked up by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs rep and said that these cases are being compared. These two cases are not compared, they are being different. But what is being compared is why India appointed a counsel in that case, which is an Indian prisoner in Pakistan, and not in this case, which is another Indian prisoner in Pakistan. So this is Pakistan's plea, very logical one. So
absolutely,
this is,
and Mr.
in my
Pracha talking
opinion,
about
only dragging feet.
Right. Mr. Pracha, talking about this whole issue, Indian government is trying to escape primarily the legal proceedings against Yadav. How do you see that? But also the underlying element is the Indian subversive activities in the region. Primarily, first of all, the way India is trying to escape the legal proceedings. I would like you to comment on that first, and then we'll talk about the Indian activities in the region.
Well, thank you very much. The details of the case that has been here in Pakistan, especially after the ICJ verdict, has been primarily on the issue of effective review and reconsideration. The word used are effective review and reconsideration. And Air Marshal Saab has very rightly pointed out that on 20th of May this year, an ordinance was promulgated paving the legal way for legal discourse to Kulbhushan Yadav. And there is no doubt that Pakistan provided twice the opportunity to the Indian High Commission, which is called the consular access, as per verdict of the International Court of Justice. The problem is, it's not a simple case like Muhammad Ismail or other case. Pakistan possesses a concrete evidence of Indian involvement in the not only in the internal affairs of Pakistan, but in the sabotage and subvertive activities inside Pakistan. The concrete evidence is in Pakistani hands about the Indian terroristic, plans and strategy, what Ajit Doval once called defensive offense or offensive defense strategy against Pakistan. So this is a very high profile case. This case provides an evidence of Indian state terrorism inside Pakistan. So India will try at its best. What late Sushma Swaraj has told the Indian Parliament, that Kulbhushan Yadav is son of India and we will do everything to bring him back. So they are trying to do everything to bring him back, but through what means? They have not cooperated with the Islamabad High Court. And yesterday there was a hearing. The detailed written verdict was out, and once again court offered third time that they should appoint a counsel. As per Pakistani Bar Council laws, no Indian advocate or lawyer can appear before any Pakistani court. Pakistani laws are very clear that any person, any lawyer, any person of LLB degree holder who is registered in Pakistani Bar Council, only that person can present any case before any court inside Pakistan. So it is not something that it has been especially designed now to deny any legal support to Kulbhushan Yadav. Rather, Pakistani Bar Council Act is an old one. What India can do, as per even that ordinance, they can send a lawyer which can assist any Pakistani lawyer who has to plead Kulbhushan Yadav case
Yes.
in Pakistan before any court. The other important thing is that what's assessed or feared in Pakistan is that India will never cooperate for any legal discourse in Pakistan. Rather, they plan and they intend to take Pakistan once again in the International Court of Justice, because last time their whole plea were not accepted by the International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice asked only about what has been in the Vienna Convention. So nothing more, nothing less. They did not ask for any, execution or no execution of the sentence that has been awarded by the General Field Marshal
Right.
in Pakistan. This is basically the problem, and this is the feeling in Pakistan, that India somehow is trying once again to go to the International Court of Justice and will never cooperate with the legal discourse in Pakistan.
Right, right. We are joined by Dr. Rifat Hussain, renowned senior academic and expert on Pakistan's national security. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hussain. Talking about Kulbhushan Yadav, we just talked about the legal technical points on the issue. Pakistan has rebuffed the propaganda from the Ministry of External Affairs, India. But the whole narrative around Kulbhushan Yadav, how do you see that? His case at ICJ and now being tried in Pakistan, that is very clear that this person was here to sabotage peace and stability, a spy working inside Pakistan and also responsible for killing so many innocent people in Pakistan. The narrative around this whole thing, how do you see that?
Well, thank you so much, Shamil. It is quite obvious that India is resorting to all legal tactics, including the approach to the ICJ to put Pakistan in the dock. But it is very clear, as my previous two analysts were saying, that the ICJ verdict is very, very clear. India did not get what it wanted, which essentially was it wanted. Verdict is in favor, whereby have got sentence committed, but they were hoping that ICJ will deliver a verdict which will give him release from the.
So I think there's some distortion in your some distortion in your voice, some technical issue. I think I would ask the producer to call again. I would go to Air Commodore Raza. Air Commodore Raza, the propaganda that we see from the Indian side, how do you see that? Because the underlying element is that India now wants to escape the legal proceedings around Kulbhushan Yadav. So what they would do is they would come up with such kind of gimmicks, statements from the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, probably the way their media is discussing Kulbhushan Yadav case. How do you see that? There's propaganda from the Indian side and the counter propaganda from our side, let's say, of what they are doing.
As far as India is concerned, their goal is very clear. They don't want to contest this case in the court, and they want to sort of project an image that it's Pakistan which is not implementing the directives of International Court of Justice. But they will fail because the evidence is too clear-cut that Pakistan has been making concession after concession. And as I just mentioned, even an ordinance had to be passed to sort of extend the legal boundaries to accommodate the judgment of International Court of Justice. So Pakistan has done everything possible, And now the matter is that the High Court can give a directive to the government of Pakistan to appoint a council on its own, or a panel of councils for Mr. Yadav to select the lawyers from, and then the proceeding. At the moment, Indian effort is not to let the proceedings go forward. And the way out is only that Pakistan has to appoint a council under the court order, because that will be legally binding on both parties, because the International Court of Justice has very clearly said that the case will proceed further as per the Pakistani law. So I see it's a very clear position, and these are the necessary steps which will be taken. The process will be slightly delayed, but it will not be stalled for good, in my opinion.
Right. Commodore Basit, please stay with us. Dr. Hussain, talking about this propaganda from the Indian side, few days back, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and DG ISPR also did a press conference that was very important. The way I would say Indian officials were mentioned specifically who have been instigating terrorism and extremism in the region using the Afghan soil, that was very important, exposing India on every platform. And the Indian dossier was also handed over to the Secretary General of the United Nations and also to the Afghan ambassador here in Pakistan. Exposing India, its design in the region, and then this whole debate on Kulbhushan Yadav, the propaganda from the Indian side. How do you see this whole situation?
Well, it's quite obvious that Pakistan not only has a very strong case against India about its interference, and Pakistan has provided dossier to the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly and all the different capitals of the world, documenting the Indian attempt and consistent attempts to use Afghan soil to create chaos and instability inside Pakistan. And Kulbhushan Yadav's case is a clear pointer in that direction. Now the Indians are responding to the Pakistani charges or Pakistani evidence against their interference inside Pakistan from Afghanistan particularly. They are resorting to legal nitpicking, and they are trying to build up a case, which I don't think they will succeed, is to ask the ICJ that its verdict, which is a clear verdict, is not being implemented by Pakistan, and the whole issue of the appointment of these independent council, which contradicts Indian own stance, because the Ministry of External Affairs has disowned its own appointment of a lawyer on behalf of Kulbhushan Yadav. So Pakistan not only is consistent, but is playing according to international law and norms, and Pakistan has said that it will abide by the decision of the ICJ. So, but there is a clear evidence of Indian involvement, continued involvement, which goes back to the about at least 2 to 3 years ago, when Kulbhushan Yadav was arrested along the Pakistan-Iran border, and since then Pakistan has been consistently telling the international community of the Indian machinations, how they would like to sabotage and create chaos and support the terrorist groups, which are about 70 of them, and Pakistan has provided a lot of evidence, including the intercepts and the conversations, and the whole bit. So, my own judgment is that Pakistan should be ready to counter this Indian propaganda against Pakistan, that Pakistan has no legal case, or Pakistan is trying to create hurdles in the provision of international justice according to the ICJ judgment. So Pakistan should be ready to deal with this aspect of the Indian stance also.
Right. Dr. Hussain, please stay with us on phone call. Mr. Paracha, talking about the Indian dossier, first of all, the way we see developments taking place in Afghanistan, Taliban and the Afghan government, they have now agreed again on some basic contours of discussion and further talks. While this is happening in Afghanistan, the Indian dossier that exposed Indian involvement in Afghanistan, Indian officials, army men, diplomats for that matter, the way they have been using Indian consulates to support and finance the terrorist organizations there in Afghanistan, organizations like TTP, Jamaat-ul Ahrar and Hizbul Ahrar. How important is this at this point when we are talking about peace in Afghanistan to expose India and to actually tell the region and the world that while Pakistan and other countries are trying for peace and stability over there, this is what India is doing in Afghanistan?
Well, this is the whole idea, in fact. When you talk about Kulbhushan Yadav, that is the, as I said earlier, an evidence in Pakistani hand about Indian involvement in the sabotage activities in Pakistan. And I remember two instances. One was when Kulbhushan Yadav's mother and his wife were here, and Pakistan, as a goodwill gesture, invited them to see and chat with Kulbhushan Yadav. Kulbhushan Yadav very categorically told his mother that there should be no doubt that I was serving commander in the Indian Navy and I was with RAW and I was carrying out sabotage activities in Pakistan. And the dialogue that took place, and the mother responded that you are my son. How can I believe that my son will be doing something which is very inhuman, which is very against the human dignity and human values? I cannot believe that you are doing these activities. But Kulbhushan Yadav replied, I remember that these are the hard facts and this is the reality. And even when the Indian High Commission senior official, who is basically the CDA nowadays because High Commissioner is not there, when he had a consular access after ICJ verdict, they did not listen to Kulbhushan Yadav. I remember what my sources told me that when the Indian acting High Commissioner went in that particular room, and he said, I will not be talking to this man who is under severe influence of narcotics and drugs, So there has not been any meaningful consular access because of India. And there is no legal process going on because of the attitude of the Indian government. So when you talk of the region, Kulbhushan Yadav also came from Iran. He was stationed in Chabahar region of Iran. What I want to say is this whole region is being activated by India through its consulates or through its embassies to have these activities against Pakistan. There has been TTP backing, there has been HAU backing by India, and there in the dossier that you are talking, Pakistan has cited at least 86 evidences, very concrete evidences. These are the conversation between the Indian, agents and their local facilitators here. Colonel Rajesh, sometimes back, he was posted in Afghan embassy in Kabul, embassy of India in Kabul, and he was active very much over there. Those organizations, those militant outfits which were crushed and ousted by Pakistan Army in their operation in Swat, and then consequent operation Zarb-e-Azb in North Waziristan, and then through Raddul Fasad, all these elements, they fled to Afghanistan. And they are being supported by Indian agents, Indian consulates and Indian embassy in Kabul. So this has been part of this dossier. And I tell you one more thing. What I feel is the change strategy of Pakistan. 5 years back, 10 years back, 15 years back, it was India that used to say that Pakistan is epicenter of terrorism and Pakistan is spreading terrorism in the region and beyond. And Pakistan always remained very defensive. Pakistan used to say, no, no, we are not, epicenter of terror. We are rather victims of terror. But this time, the change in strategy that I feel and I can see is that Pakistan is taking a step forward, and
Right.
Pakistan is exposing all those insurgencies or all those conspiracies against Pakistan, through which Pakistan has literally been the victim of terrorism for the last 20 years or so.
Right, right. Dr. Hussain, moving on to our next topic, your brief comment on this. Pakistan's ambassador met Bangladesh Prime Minister, and both agreed that Pakistan and Bangladesh should improve their relations and strengthen their bilateral relations. This is a significant development. How do you see these developments? This wasn't like this 3-4 years back, even 3-4 years back, but now how do you see this development between Pakistan and Bangladesh?
Well, I think it's a very positive development. It directly follows on Prime Minister Imran Khan's call to Hasina Wajid in July, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister, in which he had expressed the desire for both countries to engage in a dialogue. And now the Pakistani ambassador has been given access to the Bangladeshi Prime Minister, and both countries are looking forward to the resumption of their foreign secretary level dialogue, which has been suspended because of the Indian pressure on Bangladesh, and this is a good development. And another related aspect is the China factor, because China has been helping Bangladesh not only to build its ports, but also is interested in getting Bangladesh heavily involved in the CPEC project and the BRI initiative. So China is a fundamentally important factor in terms of Bangladesh's attitude towards Pakistan. And I think that if the foreign secretary level dialogue gets resumed, and if there are high-level visits between the two countries, including the ministerial or high leadership level visits, if they take place, then I think Pakistan and Bangladesh would have tremendous opportunities opening up to them, not only in terms of trade, investment, and brotherly relations. And one thing, Shamil, we should not forget that we must remember that the foundational meeting of the Pakistan Muslim League, which led to the demand for the creation of Pakistan, was held in Bengal in 1905. So
Right.
So there is a huge reservoir of goodwill, but that's because of the bitterness and the way in which we parted ways, and because of the Indian interference in the internal matters of Bangladesh, including the poisonous propaganda that the Indian has launched against the Pakistan army, accusing it of committing genocide. And now we have, for example, Sumila Bose has written a book which is called The Red Reckoning, in which she has documented that the Indian claims about the so-called genocide against the Pakistan army, they were highly exaggerated. And so as the new generation comes up, has come up in Bangladesh, so they are willing to forget, and we should look forward to a healthy relationship in the future. But we are in the early stages, and it will be important for both countries to build on the goodwill gestures which have been initiated by Pakistan, and now we have this goodwill towards Pakistan has been reciprocated by India's Prime Minister Hasina Wajid.
Right, right. Dr. Hussain, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. We'll take a break, and after the break, we are going to discuss about Pakistan-Bangladesh relations. Dr. Hussain rightly mentioned that the underlying factor is that both countries have realized that they need to improve the relationship. China is one factor, but also there is another very important factor, and that factor is Citizenship Amendment Act by the Indians, and that has rattled the authorities in Bangladesh. That is a major concern for Bangladesh. Gradually, we see that India rather is getting diplomatically isolated in the region. Talk about Afghanistan, no role for India, only except India's subversive role there of supporting the terrorist organizations like TTP in Afghanistan. Looking at India's relations with China, it doesn't look very good. The death of 25 Indian soldiers at the hand of the Chinese at Ladakh, that was pretty embarrassing for India. India's relations with Nepal, for that matter, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan, of course, we know. So India, we see, is diplomatically getting isolated in the region. While this is happening, India also wants to bully other nations in the region, but of course nobody would accept that bullying behavior by the Indians. We're going to discuss about Pakistan-Bangladesh relations, the scope of this relationship, and the future of Pakistan-Bangladesh relationship. After this break, stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing Pakistan-Bangladesh relationship, the future of Pakistan-Bangladesh relations. Pakistan's ambassador to Bangladesh met the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Hasina Wajid, and this is a significant development, especially after a phone call of Prime Minister Imran Khan and Prime Minister Hasina Wajid this year in July, and both talked about the better relationship between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Air Commodore Basit, talking about this relationship, while we talk about other factors, but before discussing other factors, how important it is for Pakistan and Bangladesh at this point, looking at the regional politics and the global politics, to improve the relationship?
It's very important for both Pakistan and Bangladesh. For Pakistan, it is important to sort of counter the Indian strategy, which they had successfully played for last couple of years to isolate Pakistan on the international scene. And its success was seen by their successfully stalling the SAARC meeting in Pakistan, and all the SAARC countries sort of sided with India. But now that scenario has changed. Nepal is virtually at loggerheads, and so is Sri Lanka and many other countries. Bangladesh is the latest entrant to that opposing movement. So it's good that Pakistan has not only come out of this isolation, this artificial isolation created by India, but it has actually moved forward, significantly forward, in sort of isolating India, at least from the regional politics. India is at loggerheads with China. It's fighting with Nepal, and I mean, it's very clear that its earlier created image of a benign hegemon has been shattered, and all the neighbors, the Indian neighbors, they see it as a sort of the dictatorial hegemon who wants to play the role of a big brother. Having said that, let me sort of cover the international, the regional situation, the change in the regional situation, how it has come up. You see, the second term of this latest term of Sheikh Hasina Wajid, she got re-elected in 2019. I think by that time, she had realized that India has outlived its utility for Bangladesh, and China is a better sort of deal as far as Bangladesh is concerned. With that background in mind came this Citizen Amendment Act, which was passed in December 2019. And that actually sort of crystallized that whole thing, which was actually in process, in making. And Bangladesh actually sort of was very angry on this. And an indication, if you recollect, was that the Indian High Commissioner in Dhaka, Ms. Ganguly Das, requested to meet Indian Prime Minister, and her request was denied for 4 months. And in fact, she was never given access to her. And it was the foreign minister of Bangladesh, Mr. Abul Kalam, who met her. And Ms. Ganguly Das was a very important Indian officer. She was from Bangladesh. She was to go to a very important assignment in Ministry of External Affairs in India. So that is the background in which, and the reason was that in Sylhet there was an airport to be constructed. And Bangladesh awarded that airport to China, and India never wanted it because it's in the northeastern India. It's just into that. It's a sensitive area for Indians. They didn't want to see the Chinese there, but Bangladesh didn't care. And similarly, many other Indian projects which were sort of proceeding in Bangladesh were slowed down, and they in their place the Chinese projects were accelerated. So in this background, in July, the Prime Minister Imran Khan called July this year. And that call was very well received by the by the Bangladesh foreign Prime Minister. And now the meeting of the Pakistani ambassador with Ms. Hasina Wajid is a very, very significant and important state. And I'm sure this will be followed by meeting at least at the foreign secretary's level, and this mutually improving relations would be beneficial for both Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Right, and Mr. Paracha, Bangladesh, many people see Bangladesh as the new rising power. Many people think that even after China, it is not any other country but Bangladesh that is doing pretty well in terms of its economy. At this point, while there are common concerns for Pakistan and Bangladesh in the region, how do you see this cooperation and the future of economic cooperation between Pakistan and Bangladesh?
Let's be realist, and let's take a realistic approach to whatever has been between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Basically, these are three parallel tracks that have been talked about by two very learned colleagues. The one is that India-Bangladesh. It was more than CAA, it was NRC in August 2019, and that irked Bangladesh because of NRC was up to Assam, and almost 4 million Assamese, they were declared as non-Indians, and they were labeled as being, immigrated from Bangladesh. So couple of state visits, the foreign minister visit, and then another minister was supposed to visit India, but Bangladesh cancelled. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also could not be welcomed by the Bangladeshi authorities. The second track is China-led track, and that's basically the regional one. It's very rightly pointed out that BRI is such a centrifugal, power in the region. Whichever the country they are part of Belt and Road Initiative, they are being pulled by China, and Bangladesh has also felt that it is China, as you are also talking about. It has been more in terms of their economic, relation or their exports or economic development, rather than the strategic or the security paradigm that the Bangladesh was feeling. However, the point of isolation of India, you're right that Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan and China, they held a ministerial meeting, virtual meeting on COVID. Then Sri Lanka joined it, I mean, this region, for example, Nepal has been under this tremendous influence of India. But if it is now, taking meetings with China and Pakistan, must be something that they cherished long ago, While bilateral relations, I mean, only last year, there was no visa issuance between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Their diplomats, which are called the assignment visas, they were stalled. But somehow, Prime Minister Imran Khan spoken to Begum Hasina Wajid, and I think President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi, also spoke to someone in Bangladesh. Now that after these calls, the High Commissioner of Pakistan was allowed to be in Dhaka. Imran Siddiqui is the current one. Otherwise, we nominated Saida Saklan, and she waited for 2 years that she could proceed to Dhaka, but she was not allowed. And now she is in Kenya serving as Pakistan's High Commissioner.
Right.
These
But they
are just, let me complete,
Sure.
there used to be SARC platform that after every 2 years, the leadership could meet, on the sideline of the SARC. Now SARC is not functional. The opportunities for the meeting, they are minimal now. Foreign Minister Abdul Momen and Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi could meet, but SARC is not meeting. Prime Minister Imran Khan and Prime Minister Hasina Wajid could meet, but SARC is not meeting. It is very difficult to me, to my assessment, although Prime Minister Imran Khan invited Hasina Wajid to visit Pakistan and she accepted. Let's see if the bitterness of the decades between the two countries. Dr. Rifat Hussain talked about founding day of Muslim League in Dhaka, and he talked about Muslim League leaders from Dhaka. AK Fazle Haq was also from Bangladesh, who read this 23rd March 1940
Right.
Pakistan resolution. Hussain Shahid Sorwardi, who was basically who made efforts for first constitution of Pakistan 1956, he was also from Bengal. So Bangladesh and Pakistan, they are the natural brother, they are the natural partners, but the bitterness of the history that is keeping that away.
Well, rightly said. There is baggage, but of course, this is the right point. This is the right time that both countries improve their relationship. As I said earlier, there are common concerns, common challenges, and a lot of opportunities as well in future. And we hope that we are going to work on it. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Mr. Pracha, a pleasure having you on the program. Air Commodore Basit, thank you for your time. Pleasure having you on the show. That is all from today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.